Hello, welcome to The Conversation in New Central Television. This is the program where we bring you up to speed with all the political happenings on the African continent. I am Gbenga Aborowa.
And I am Rita Omodia. And of course, we know that in Nigeria, elections are fast coming to the state. And now we begin on the sad note where just 45 days to the governorship election in Nigeria, the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party in Abia State, Professor Uche Kone, is reported dead.
Now, according to a statement released a few hours ago, Kone died at the National Hospital in Abuja after a brief illness. The statement adds that Kone was recovering after taking proper treatment in the United Kingdom, but relapsed a few days ago, leading to multiple cardiac arrests. May his soul rest in peace. So now to the business of the day. We will be discussing the new twist about the politics in Kenya, where main opposition candidate Raila Odinga has called President Ruto's candidacy illegitimate, and the crisis in Cameroon, where the government is denied asking Canada for help. Interesting developments on the African political scene.
Definitely. I mean, if you look at Nigeria, as elections coming closer, we see lots of things happening, people defecting different parties, and unfortunately, people also die. I mean, this is a governorship candidate for Abia State in the People's Democratic Party. It's quite sad.
Very sad one.
Yeah.
And developing situation in the DRC that might escalate if care is not taken into a full-blown war. So yesterday, the Rwandan government released a statement saying, you know, they took defensive measures against Congolese Sukhoi 25 fighter jet that made incursions into its territory 3 times that they were forced to. And the Congolese are saying, look, this happened in Goma. We were within our own airspace when you shot at us. So, I mean, it was already a bad situation. Let's just hope that they come, their nerves are calm, and this doesn't escalate into a full-blown war.
Definitely. I mean, we had guests earlier on last week. I mean, we talked about the escalation between DRC and Rwanda, and it still came out to blame game. Rwanda blaming DRC, Rwanda and DRC blaming Rwanda. I do hope that peace actually comes to DRC for the people, because there's been a lot of ripple effect from this war going on in DRC. And today on The Conversation, we'll begin in Kenya, where controversies seem to be far from over in what was seen as Kenya's most peaceful but disputed election held in August. Despite concerted efforts to put a stop to the major discontent of the election result by the opposition, Raila's coalition azimio la umoja has once again vowed not to recognize the government of President William Ruto. This recent spat is coming following allegations from an anonymous whistleblower at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, who claims that Ruto was illegitimately elected as president.
Now, contrary to the official election result declared by IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati on August 16, 2022, the document cited by the whistleblower showed that Raila garnered over 8 million votes, giving him 57.3% advantage over William Ruto. In the 8-point agenda on January the 23rd, Raila Odinga made a clarion call at Kamukuji grounds, demanding that the Kenya Kwanza government resigns, while also insisting that the entire infrastructure records of the 2022 elections in the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission be made public and audited by an impartial body. Now, joining us to discuss and make sense of all of this, we have a Member of Parliament for Mukurweini Constituency, Honourable John Kaguchia. He joins us live from Nairobi, Kenya. We also have Brian Obuya, Special Projects and Investigations at Nation Media Group. They both joined from Nairobi, Kenya. A warm welcome to you both, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining on the program. I would like to start with you, Honourable Kaguchia. What do you make of all of this? This is 6 months after the elections. The case has gone to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has made a decision. So why is this coming now? One of the demands is that the coalition is to, of the azimio coalition, is that an independent body carry out this forensic audit. What are the implications for politics in Kenya? Is it that azimio doesn't respect the decision of the Supreme Court? And why didn't this whistleblower come out when this issue was in court? What do you make of this?
Fiction, I would say. It's a fertile imagination. It's not something that is valid, neither is it truthful or factual. What is happening is the leader of opposition, Raila Odinga, characteristically, he has done this virtually after every other election since 1997. And the reason why he does this is to be able to share government with the winner. And he has succeeded fairly much in all the other attempts to disrupt the country in the past. And so he hopes to succeed this time round. And clearly, anyone who is an observer, even externally or objectively, can clearly see the whistleblower is an employee or it's a stooge or a proxy for Raila Odinga himself. He is the one who has looked for someone and paid them to go and declare that they are whistleblowing. And it's clear that what Raila Odinga is interested in Kenya is to share power with William Samoei Ruto. It is far-fetched or it's unbelievable that the issue of election stealing would have happened since Raila Odinga had very arrogantly praised himself that he had the government on his side, he had the system and what they would call the deep state here in Kenya on his side, and that would have helped him to steal the election. And then going with what we are also seeing in the commission, or rather the tribunal that has been set to investigate exactly what transpired during the election time, it's clear that a lot of irregularities have been planned by government and by the system and by the deep state, as it's called here in Kenya. And for some reason, the government was not able to succeed with its plan to try and fox out William Samoei Ruto. As you may know, the president who was sitting then, Uhuru Kenyatta, was siding with Raila Odinga, and they were working together for Raila presidency. But this did not happen. And so clearly you can see, coming now 6 months later, that there's new evidence against what the Supreme Court did pronounce itself is hogwash, it's lie, it's work of fiction, it's something that doesn't hold water at all, and it's not even something that should be entertained. Again, you also need to know that as Raila does this, it's not the Azimio coalition that is doing this, because a good number of members of parliament who are elected on Jubilee Party, which is the member of the Azimio Party, have already withdrawn their support for that claim. A lot of senior members of Azimio at the very top have also declared that they're not going to be part of that illegitimate process that Raila Odinga would want to take and to declare the presidency of William Samoei Ruto illegitimate. Okay. And so many of them have withdrawn their support. We also have a party which is led by Professor, the former governor of West Pokot, and also his party has also withdrawn his support for that process. And so clearly, from where we stand as a country, this is a storm in a teacup. It is not something that will go anywhere. It's something that will die off within no time. As soon as it begins, that protest will die off.
All right, Honorable Kaguchia, we'll definitely come back to this power-sharing government and, of course, looking at the support for Raila Odinga as the opposition. But I want to bring in Brian right now. We're looking at the validity of this document presented by a supposed or anonymous whistleblower from the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Now, Brian, I mean, you saw the document, and according to Jeremiah Kioni, who is one of the coalition leaders, he said that Ruto gathered 41.6% of the votes, while Raila won 57.3% of the votes. Now, are there any facts to validate this position from this whistleblower? And what further information do we have about the whistleblower and the credibility of this information that he has given?
And that would be a good place to begin, because as you would already have realized, the Member of Parliament for Mukurweini says that the whistleblower is a stooge for the opposition leader, Mr. Raila Odinga. It's an argument that I would slightly would like to challenge a little bit, because as we speak right now, the identity of this supposed whistleblower is unknown. Therefore, we cannot really try and link that whistleblower to anybody unless we are able to know who exactly this person is, and if indeed that person even exists. This is opposition propaganda. Now, something else about this alleged information coming in or being given out to the public by the opposition on how they won this election is that you cannot deny it, yet you cannot agree with it. Why? Because this information is uncorroborated. This information is uncorroborated and therefore remains unchallenged. What do I mean? It may sound a little bit tricky, but this is what I'm saying. There is no one who has come up with further information that tries to contravene what has been presented, alleged whistleblower.
But sorry to interrupt you, Brian. Don't you think the burden of proof should be on that person that is alleged?
That is the point. But then, even as much as this person is not known, there's something you also need to get here. One of the key things that the opposition faction has been calling for is that independent audit to be carried out. And I feel that at this point in time, to be honest, every time, every day, it becomes difficult to really understand what happened in the Kenyan election on August 9th. The reason I would be saying this here in New Central is because there is a fresh allegation every day. If you've been following, the president has even accused some people of trying to abduct and kill the election chairman. That allegation has not been substantiated. Here, right now, people are just saying things. People are throwing allegations from the topmost offices, including that of the president, where you just say things and you go on, you get away with it. So as we speak, the whistleblower's information has not been really challenged using any further evidence. Now, what is supposed to challenge this evidence is what the opposition leader is calling for, and that is an audit of all the servers that were used by the electoral body to announce this election or to conduct this particular election. I know it is a matter that has already gone through Supreme Court, and that makes it even difficult for it to change a lot of things or anything in government, so to speak. And if that is why, to ensure political stability, and if indeed there is nothing anyone is hiding, this is information that should be obviously and clearly and easily availed, such that if you're asking for an audit, why can't we just have an audit once and for all, so that we put this matter to rest, where people are claiming they won an election when they lost, or people claim they lost an election when they actually won. That is the thing about it, so to speak.
Sorry, Brian, before I go to Honorable Honorable Kaguchia, beg your pardon, I would like to take you up on some of the things you said. Now, Raila Odinga has been contesting elections since the 1990s. He's an elder statesman, and he knows the history of politics in Kenya, post-election violence, and the need to, move on and be a good sportsman. And don't you think challenging the Kenyan judiciary, the Supreme Court, will put a dent in Kenya's judiciary? It means that, they rushed into judgment, they didn't do a thorough job. Because the essence of that is, look, this is the final place you could go to for judgment. We've passed our judgment. Let's move on. There's a nation to build. And in in President Ruto's inauguration speech, he did talk about reconciliation and, moving it forward. So don't you think Kenyans have had enough of this politicking? Isn't it time to move on rather than talk about elections that took place 6 months ago?
What you are obviously asking me to do is a difficult part of this conversation, to give my opinion. and which may not really be qualified here, especially in my position as a journalist, where I'm supposed to be looking at things in an objective point of view. But I will agree with you that most people would say that it is time for people to let things go, and we should not be talking about elections, and that elections should now be behind us, and we have a nation to build. And those who are justified to say so. But that does not mean that we can underestimate the level, those who are aggrieved by whatever they call stolen election. We cannot underestimate. It is only important that we give them each and everything they feel will make them satisfied that indeed they lost an election. Indeed, it's said worldwide that there can never really be peace without justice, and that as much as you want to move the country forward, is it not just as more important for people to see that indeed justice has happened, especially now that the opposition faction is even accusing the judiciary of having been hijacked by some cartels of
but people would always allege, Brian, you saw what happened in Brazil recently with Jair Bolsonaro supporters. You saw the storming of Congress by Trump supporters. Does it mean that if you allege anything, everybody has to go back and, do a thorough check or x-ray those results? There are implications for this sort of behavior, and they're not always pleasant.
I think I would like to bring in Honorable Kaguchia. I think I'd like to bring in Honorable Kaguchia into all of this. I mean, we're looking at people being free to dispute elections. I mean, if you feel that the election was not valid according to your honesty, you have, according to democracy and freedom of your rights, you can actually go ahead to the law court and say, okay, I'm contesting this particular elections. While some people will say, okay, if the Supreme Court has said that this election is valid, then let's just go ahead with it. Now, Honorable Kaguchia, there was a point that Brian brought about, and he talked about the fact that if you're actually saying that all things are fair and square, then why not allow for a forensic audit of the elections? Now, why is President William Ruto or the IEBC commissioners still objecting to this? I mean, if everything is free and fair, then allow them see fair that this is what happened.
Unfortunately, that's a lie. The president has not refused to have any forensic audit. Okay. Neither has Chebukati refused to have any forensic audit. You may, if you understand how the electoral process went down in August last year, 2022 in Kenya, you realize that unlike in 2017 where we had a server which was not open, in this case we had a server which was open, and we had a website or a web page where every result from the polling station was actually posted. What happened from 2017 experience when we had a dispute because of what was referred to as a closed server, the Supreme Court didn't make a pronouncement and say that in future elections, the server must always be open. It must be an open process. And then the Supreme Court also made a ruling that the results at the polling center, at the polling station, must be final. And that is very, very important in our electoral process in Kenya. Because this then removes all the doubts and removes the points of manipulation and removes any kind of intervention in the system. So what would happen is that at the point of the polling center, when the votes are counted and both the agents sign, they will then upload the results and then upload the form, which they have signed, and then they deliver a physical form to the tallying center, and then all the forms will be collected at the county level and delivered to Bomas of Kenya, where we have the National Tallying Center. Now, at the National Tallying Center, the forms would then be counter-checked with what is in the system. And until when that is agreed that this form which is in the system is the same as the physical form that has been delivered, at that point, all the agents then would sign.
Honorable Kaguchia, can you hear us?
think we lost him then.
Okay, he was giving us details of the forensic audit and, of course, how the election went on, the transmission of results, which, of course, we also, and News Central TV, we're actually monitoring the results. Now, I'm going to bring in Brian, still looking at the way forward into all of this. I mean, during the elections we had, and before the elections, we had a peace accord signed by the two parties. I mean, they all agreed peace before, during, and after the elections. Now, we're seeing both parties, Raila and Ruto, saying that they would not be coerced into a handshake. Honorable Kaguchia actually mentioned the fact that Raila is only trying to seek a power-sharing government. Now, I want your take on this and the possibility of Ruto actually budging into a handshake or making peace with Raila Odinga.
I would say, and I hope we have Honorable Kaguchia back. He's a good man, but you have to remember that he's also a politician. And he is also a beneficiary of the electoral body and the entire election that was carried out. Therefore, to ask some of these questions legitimately will also be questioning his own will. So we will give him, we will allow him to not to ask. We will allow him not to ask the very hard questions. But here's the thing. Let me begin where the Honorable Member of Parliament talked about the opening of the servers and that they were opened according to the instructions of the court. That is also something that has been very difficult for anybody. Like I began by saying, it becomes difficult to understand what really happened in the August election. Because while the court said that the servers had actually been opened, we had a legitimate letter written by the firm that ran that election saying that it could not open the very servers. When we were told that those servers were opened, this letter said that there were servers that they could not open because according to them, it would have jeopardized their processes and elections in other places. We had the luxury of knowing what these servers held. We never had the luxury of knowing how much these servers, what information these servers were having, or what really those servers were tasked to doing in the entire election. So when Mr. Kaguchia says that this is election that the servers were opened, he is right because that is what the court said, and the courts are meant to declare things. But once the courts have declared this type of information, it is also upon us to interrogate some of the things that the courts have said. For example, that particular letter, when the court says that the servers have been opened, what are we supposed to do about this confirmation from the firms that were involved when they say we are not going to open our servers? Now, to the question at hand, when we talk about Raila Odinga seeking a stake in government, that may actually be true because these are politicians and they do these things for survival. In fact, after President William Ruto was declared the winner of this election, there are people who have come from the opposition faction and have now joined the government and are now fighting the very opposition faction that they belonged to, including those who are vehement saying that the election has been stolen. So we must not lose sight of the fact that these are politicians just like Mr. Kaguchia, and they can say anything. These are politicians, and this is Africa, where people say anything. Mr. Raila Odinga could actually be seeking a stake in government. Who knows? The whistleblower may actually be linked to the opposition faction in this country. Until that whistleblower comes out and the identity is known, then we cannot really,
and Brian, I'm happy you're a journalist, as it is our job as journalists is to interrogate these people, ask them questions so we can know the true situation of things. I'll let Mr. Honourable Kaguchia have the last say here because we're fast run out of time. Now, Honourable Kaguchia, the outgoing IEBC chairperson, Wafula Chebukati, seems to be at the centre of it all. Just last week, President William Ruto, like Brian alluded to, said, you know, there were attempts on his life. In the last electoral cycle, an IEBC member was assassinated. So what would you say about the tenure of Mr. Chebukati as IEBC chief? And when can we get to a point in Kenya where, you know, elections will not be disputed? You have gentlemanly handshake like what took place in Nigeria 8 years ago when former President Goodluck Jonathan picked up the phone and congratulated his rival, Muhammadu Buhari, who will be stepping down after completing his term. in May?
I can tell you, it's not possible to have elections in Kenya which are not disputed, so long as Raila Odinga is a candidate and he loses. The only time you'd have an election which is fair in the eyes of Raila Odinga is if he wins. Otherwise, in the whole of his life, and I'm sure this will go on until the day Raila Odinga is not a candidate anymore, please expect the election dispute to continue happening. There is a pattern clearly that we have seen that has developed in the whole of this. In 1997, when Raila Odinga, together with Mwai Kibaki, were defeated by Moi, the President Moi at that time, Raila Odinga with Mwai Kibaki did dispute the process and they did dispute the results. But Kibaki lived to fight another day. But what happened with Raila Odinga is that he caused so much chaos until Moi did call him on the table and formed what they call the cooperation government. And that is when the NDP was swallowed by KANU, which was the ruling party at that time, until again 2002, when Moi did not pick Raila Odinga as a preferred presidential candidate. And Raila Odinga, of course, left and went to work together with Mwai Kibaki and other opposition leaders and some of the people who left KANU. And in 2002, they had an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with Kibaki, and they formed government together. In 2007, when Raila Odinga again was defeated by Mwai Kibaki, he caused so much mayhem in Kenya. Many people were killed, many people died, until the moment when again they were able to share government. And he was given half of the government, he was given the prime minister position, and that is when things again went cool. In 2017, when Raila Odinga was defeated by Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga again pushed people to the streets until the time they had a handshake. And that is the only time he was able to agree to allow who can continue ruling.
Sorry, Honorable Kaguchia, I would like to cut you there just because I want someone from the independent party to talk, and that's from Brian. Quickly, please. Now, he points the accusing fingers at Raila Odinga as somehow being the mischief maker in elections. I mean, he has taken us back a whole lot. But some people also blame the electoral process. I mean, looking at the appointment of the commissioners, it's being appointed by the president and then it's been confirmed by the parliament. Are there still other factors that lead to this invalidation of the electoral process aside from the personnel in the elections?
No, they're not appointed by the president at all. We have.
Sorry, I'm talking to Brian, please. Can Brian please answer that?
Yeah, they may not really be appointed by the president, but the president has a higher role in the appointment of these commissioners, and that is the reason why we are always having a problem with the elections, because the commissioners are somehow linked to somebody. Like right now, I'm not saying that in Kenya are not guilty of any crimes, but 4 dissenting commissioners who were later on appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta, who was supporting Raila Odinga, are currently on trial on allegations of trying to subvert the elections, and that's what we are being told. These 4 commissioners were linked to the opposition party, according to some people in a different faction of government. So that is always the problem we are having, where commissioners of the IEBC are appointed through the authority. The president is now putting down a panel to appoint these people, and then they are voted by parliament that is also controlled by Mr. Kaguchia's party, which is the majority and which is linked to the president.
So in essence, in summary, the IEBC, the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, is not really independent. We'll look at this matter holistically next time we have time to look at this. Thank you very much, Honourable John Kaguchia. And also, I'd like to say thank you to you, Brian Obuya, for joining us on the programme. We do appreciate your time and insight. Thank you.
Thank you.